Hey guys, it's Tori, and today I have a very quick video. I'm going to be doing the Name Game book tag, which was created by, I can't remember her channel name, I think her name's Jack, and I will link it down below either way. And then I was tagged by Emily from Novel Novels, and I thought it would be fun to just do this as a kind of an opener to Victober. So it's going to be all Victorian themed. All the books I'm mentioning are Victorian. I mean, there's only going to be 4 because there's only 4 letters in my name. Basically, if you don't know, this tag asks us to find books that have titles that start with the letters of our names. And my name's Tori. It's not short for anything. I'm not doing my middle name additionally because my middle name is a little bit longer, so I just don't want to expand that too much. But anyway, let's just get right into this, starting with T. Many of you may have assumed I was going to go for Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy because that's one of my favorite books of all time. But you know, I feel like I talk a lot about Tess of the D'Urbervilles, and there's lots of other T-titled Victorian novels that I've read, including books by Thomas Hardy. There are a few that he's written that start with the T, and so I decided to go for one of those and went with the Trumpet Major by Thomas Hardy. I read this for the first time last year while I was on vacation, and it was such a delightful read. Definitely one of my favorite Hardy novels, and one I've been dying to reread pretty much since I read it. It's actually a historical novel set during the Napoleonic Wars, and we follow a woman who, of course, is debating between 2 different suitors, as many of Hardy novels do. And we follow specifically her deciding between 2 brothers, and then there's another suitor who kind of causes a little extra drama in the story. It's a really fascinating work. I don't think it's going to be for everyone. I know a couple people who have found it a little slower, but I don't know, there's just something about it, about the characters, that I just really, really love, and definitely would recommend if you want a lesser known Hardy work to pick up. Next, moving into O, and as you can imagine, this was a tricky one, but I actually did come up with 2 options, and I went with the one, so one of them had the in front of it and the other was just the O word, and I decided to go for a little bit more of a purist option. And I decided to go with Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Now, I don't love this book, but I also don't hate it quite as much as other people do. It's also one of the only Dickens novels I've read so far, which many people might say is a shame because it's not most people's favorite. In fact, most people, it's the bottom of their ranking lists for Dickens. But I was entertained listening to the audiobook for this, and while I didn't necessarily love Oliver as a character, there were a couple other characters within the story that I did find intriguing. If you don't know, Oliver Twist basically is a commentary on poverty and orphans in London during this time, and just how difficult essentially life was for them, so really raising awareness of a lot of those struggles. And so it's very sad, and it does have a happy ending, I will tell you that, but it is a very tragic story on the whole. But I do think there's some interesting characters. Specifically, I want to say her name's Nancy. I'm pretty sure there's a woman named Nancy who has a very interesting part of the story, and she's definitely the character that I think about the most from this. The rest of the characters kind of blend together a little bit, but I really appreciated her as a character. So not a favorite read of all time by any means, but definitely one that prompted some interesting thoughts, and it was entertaining. I mean, I gave it like a 3 stars, I want to say, so not great, but definitely a staple of Victorian literature. If not on BookTube, then at least in general, most people have heard of Oliver Twist at one point in their lives or another, so definitely works for introducing us into the Victober season. Next we have R, and this was actually a little bit tricky as well, but I did find one that I wanted to talk about, and that is Ruth by Elizabeth Gaskell, another underrated Victorian novel, but definitely a delight to read. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars when I read it. This follows the fallen woman trope, and it's a really beautiful version of that sort of story, especially because it's written by Elizabeth Gaskell. So if you've read any Gaskell before, you can imagine how she would approach this sort of topic. It is pretty tragic still, especially when compared to some of her other novels, but there's also a lot of really beautiful messages involved in the story, and I I really, really liked it. So definitely one I would recommend if you haven't picked it up already. And the last letter is I, and unfortunately, I don't think I've read any Victorian novels that start with the letter I, but I have a few on my TBR I would like to read that do start with an I, so I'm just going to go for one of those. I don't own it, but it is one that I have long wanted to read, and that is The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. This sounds like a pretty dark sort of sci-fi type novel where I believe there's someone who finds out, I think it's like their uncle, it's a woman whose uncle is luring people to this island, and she doesn't really know what's going on with this island. I don't really remember for sure, but it sounds interesting. I've read War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells several years ago and remember enjoying it. I didn't love it, but I did like it, and I'd like to read a lot more by H.G. Wells, and this one is one that has definitely captured my attention. I think of all his books that I have not read yet, which is most of them, this one has caught my attention the most. So hopefully I'll be able to get a copy at some point and pick this up. So anyway, that is it. Welcome to Victober. So excited to get started. This really is my favorite time of year. Just really October through December is just my favorite time of year, and it all starts with Victober, and I just absolutely love it. So I hope you have a wonderful reading month, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!